So today we continue with our reflections and overview of the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Transcendental Knowledge. So last session, we discussed the first 11 chapters. Today we will start with discussing verses 12 to 15. In verse 12, Krishna speaks about those who want to fulfill material desires. They approach demigods. But better than that, higher than that, is following the varnashram system, which means that one acts out of duty, not to fulfill material desires, but out of duty. And then Krishna says, then one can become like me. I'm unaffected by the activities in this world. So if you know my nature, then, and you know the varnashram, then you will naturally perform activities without desire. And that's following the examples of liberated souls. So we will first read text 12, that 12, chapter 4, 12. Kanksanta karmanam siddhim yayanta iya devatam. Shiprami manase loke siddhir bhavati karmaja. Man in this world desires success in fruitive activities, and therefore they worship the demigods. Quickly, of course, man gets results from fruitive work in this world. That Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he says there is one problem with this kind of people. Those who want material enjoyments and they approach the demigods. Krishna is the source of the demigods. Why not approaching Krishna for fulfilling your material desires? Why the demigods? The demigods are also his representatives. So, therefore, they are bewildered. They think that the demigods are on the same level as Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada uses the word Pashandi, an atheist. Therefore, they are atheists. So best not to take that path, but start at least with following Krishna's instructions of the varnashram system. And that's explained, text 13. Sarto varnyamma shishtam guna karma vibhagasa tasya kartaram apimam vidyakartam avyayam. According to the 3 modes of material nature and the work associated with them, the 4 divisions of human society are created. And although I am the creator of this system, you should know that yet I am the non-doer, being unchangeable. So on the slide of verse 13, that Chaturvarnya, there where you see a picture of each of these varnas. There are 4 varnas and ashrams. You see on the lotus, the left side, you have the Brahmins. The Brahmins, they are in sattva gun, or the mode of goodness. That means They have qualities such as sama, equanimity of mind, dhamma, control of the mind and senses. And then you have the next picture is the kshatriya. They are governed by the mode of rajas, and they are fighters. They like fighting, but they are also administrators. But they follow the directions of the Brahmins. So the Kshatriyas are administrators, the Brahmins are educators. And then you have below left, you have the Vaishyas. Vaishyas, it's a mixture between Rajas and Tamas. Just between a mode of passion and ignorance. And because they are very passionate and very attached, they want to gain wealth. They are commercial men, but also agriculturists, that they cultivate the land and protect the cows. Go raksha vanyam. Go means, go raksha means protection of cows. Vanyam means agriculture. And then commerce, yeah. That's their business. And they feed everyone. And then you have the Sudras. They are in ignorance completely, identifying with the body. And they are laborers. They help the others. That next slide. What is the purpose of this varnashram? The purpose is, first, one should engage according to one's material nature, one's psychophysical nature. And that gives one materially, makes one feel satisfied. That's the first thing. By that one is peaceful. In such a varnashram system, one is peaceful because one is protected by the Kshatriyas. One gets food from the Vaishyas. One gets free education from the Brahmins. Everything is supplied. No worries about that. Do we find that in modern society? No, everyone is in anxiety. Anxiety, yeah, anxiety. That see today, yeah. All this anxiety, you find it on the internet news. You read the internet news, and then you get so much anxiety, extra anxiety. We don't have anxiety enough. More anxiety comes. Yeah. Especially in these times, we should not do that too much. Let that go. So it means one becomes peaceful and is satisfied materially. And then one can dedicate one's life to spiritual practice. That's the main purpose. So it's meant to create an environment of goodness, peacefulness, and then one can practice spiritual life. So it's meant for the development of Krishna consciousness, Srila Prabhupada says. So then, next slide. This is from the purport. The tendency of a particular man towards work is determined by the modes of material nature he has acquired. The modes of material nature. You acquire modes of material nature by association. That that association, they are pushing you in certain directions. If you associate with Brahmins and devotees, you will be elevated. But if you associate with those in the mode of passion of ignorance, when I was a young boy, I came into an environment of adolescents, and they wanted to drink beer. I never drank beer, but they said, you are not a man, you must drink. So I was drinking it, but then they said, it tastes bad. Oh, they said, oh, it takes a while, you will get used to it. Another said, you must smoke. Here, take a cigarette. But I said, my mother would not like that. Your mother is not here, be a man. And if you try to smoke, and it's bad. So they say, oh, it takes a while. You must use. But that's bad association. And that's very prominent today. So we acquire a nature by association. Therefore, Nectar of Instruction said we should associate with devotees, not with non-devotees. They will bring you down, for sure. They speak about all the sensual pleasures of their lives. Men speak about their lusty desires towards women and so on. It's craziness, madness. We should stay far away of it. Let them enjoy and suffer. But we should be sane. So cultivate. We may have acquired lower modes, but when we associate with others with higher modes, then our modes will change. That next verse. A devotee transcends the limited knowledge of a Brahman and reaches the knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and thus becomes Krishna conscious. A person in Krishna consciousness transcends varnashram. So that's an important thing to understand. We have varnashram, we are associated with our, we are performing actions according to our material nature, but we do it out of duty, not to get enjoyment from it, that not to get results. Out of duty, the results we give to Krishna. That's varnashram. Haritoshnam. That's it's varnashram is meant to please the Supreme Lord. Now, otherwise, if it's not done to please the Supreme Lord, it is just a material activity. And therefore it is shrama eva ikevalam. It is useless endeavor. Because it will not cause attraction in our heart for Krishna. But we have a material nature, and by practicing spiritual life, following a sadhana, chanting Hare Krishna, worshipping the deities, eating only prasad, surely we make spiritual advancement, and our spiritual nature develops. And that spiritual nature, if we become spiritually situated, we are higher than a Brahman. When our heart is pure. Remember yesterday, we said we have to come to Nishtha. First, Anartha Nivritti. If we come to Nishtha and get Ruchi, we are already higher than a Brahman. Brahman means Nishtha, Brahma Bhuta Prashanatmana Shrishtina Kankshati. That's the test. Am I transcendental? Are you still lamenting about the things in this world? Or you hanker things in this world? You are not yet at Nista, you are not yet at Brahma Buddha, the spiritual platform. But once you have acquired that spiritual nature, then you are not forced to act anymore according to your material nature. You are not forced to act as a Sudra, performing labor, or as a Vaishya. You can do anything. Prabhupada did anything. He was cooking, he gave him lectures, translating books, he was governing a whole worldwide society. He did everything. He was serving devotees. There was no bar. We cannot do that. You can, so you have a material Svadharma, or a material nature, and you have a spiritual Svadharma. If our spiritual Svadharma is not developed, but our material Svadharma is good developed, we have to act according to our material nature in the service of Krishna. If we develop our spiritual nature and we become transcendental, then we don't need to act as a Brahman or as a Sudra or Kshatriya or whatever nature we have. You can do anything. But Krishna says, he said in the previous chapter also, devotees who develop their spiritual nature, still they can do anything, but still they continue to act according to their material nature to give the example to others, but they do it without attachment. So, therefore, after hearing that, I hope that clarifies this statement, so that I will read again. A devotee transcends the limited knowledge of a Brahman and reaches the knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus becomes Krishna conscious. So if we become Krishna conscious, then we have a realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that Bhagavan, where the Brahman has only realization of Brahman, of the Brahman effulgence, the Brahman knowledge. Brahman means, what is Brahman knowledge? Brahman knowledge means I realize I'm not this body, I'm spirit. It's good that you realize that you are a spirit soul, but who are you? What is this spirit soul? It's a spark of Krishna. And therefore, it's a servant of Krishna. Therefore, one should serve Krishna. And that's higher knowledge. That's not knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So a person in Krishna consciousness in that way transcends Varnashram. Next slide. Because Varnashram is meant as a safety belt. Therefore, we also practice Varnashram in our movement. At least we follow the ashrams, more or less. You are in the beginning. You are supposed to be a brahmacharya student, and then when you graduate, you can become a grihastha, then you can control your senses. That the best grihastha is the one who does not want to marry. That's the best. In marriage, because the spiritual master said you have to do, but there's no desire for it. Yeah, that's the best, but it's too ideal, I think. And then after that, vanaprastha, that's the end of family life. At the age of 15, more or less. Some the boys mostly go a little later or never. And then after that, sannyas. Yes. So these are the ashrams, and we are supposed to go to that in our movement. That the Varnats, that's hopeless in Kali Yuga, because in Kali Yuga everything is mixed. Yeah, you don't find a pure Kshatriya. That Kshatriya, Vaishya, mostly Sudra. Yeah. Kala, Sudra, Sambhava. Everyone in Kali Yuga is born Sudra. That's mostly our position. But for Krishna consciousness, Varnashram is a good basis, because it's a society in goodness. Even if you fall down as a devotee, you come in a society of goodness. So it's a safety belt. That so it's said here. As Krishna is transcendental to the Varnashram system of the four divisions of human society, a person in Krishna consciousness is also transcendental to all divisions of human society, whether he considers the divisions of community, nation, or species. So that we have explained. That if one becomes Krishna conscious, one can do anything. Varnashram creates a peaceful society, and it brings its participants gradually to goodness. That's the Varnashram. That's reflections. Next slide. If the authorities want to engage me in service which is contrary to my psychophysical nature, gunas, what should I do? So the temple person asks me something and say, no, that's not according to my nature. I cannot do that. You want me to clean the toilet? No, I cannot do that. That's not my nature. Oh, no, that's, one must be careful with that. Generally, you must be engaged according to your nature, but for the mission of Srila Prabhupada, we must do tapasya and do things against our nature sometimes. One should not do that 24 hours a day. That during the whole year. But during the marathon, we go all out and distribute books for Prabhupada. So that, well, whatever your nature is, you try your best. That's and rules of cleanliness. Everyone should be clean. You're not saying it's not my nature. No, we have to do things sometimes contrary to our nature, but generally our general occupation should be according to our nature. A temple president should see, oh, that's his nature. He should do that or that. He's an artist. He should paint for Krishna. He should, yeah. That he's good in cooking. Put him in the kitchen. If he's clean enough. Yeah, these are all considerations. 14. Now Krishna speaks about himself. He said in the previous verse that yeah, I created this Varnashram system, but I'm not in this system. I'm outside this system. Because why is the Varnashram so important? If you work out of duty, then you don't get reactions to your work. That if you act out of material desires, you become entangled, you get reactions. But in the Varnashram, one works out of duty, no reactions. But must Krishna follow the Varnashram to avoid the reactions? No, not at all. It's transcendental. He has organized the system, that's all. But it's outside the system. So he says, 14. There is no work that affects me, nor do I aspire for the fruits of actions. One who understands this truth about me also does not become entangled in fruitive reactions. So, Vishwanath Chakravarti says, actions do not contaminate me. I have no desire for the fruits of work. One who knows this about me is not bound by his actions. So one sees Krishna does not act to gain anything, because there's nothing to gain for him. It's Atmaram, all his desires are immediately fulfilled. So we similarly should act without desire for the fruits, just to please Krishna. And then we become also transcendental in our action, like Krishna. Next verse. Srila Prabhupada says, a king can do no wrong, is not subject to the state laws. Lord Krishna is not affected by the activities of this world. The proprietor of a factory never desires the low-grade happiness of such as the workers may desire. So he set the laws, but he's not under the laws. He organized the material world, but he's not under the laws of material world. He created all laws of nature, law of gravity, law of preservation of power, and all these laws he created. But he has nothing to do with it, with this law of gravity. He lifts Govardhan on his pinky. No law of gravity for Krishna. Next. Therefore, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, rains are not responsible for the different types of vegetation, although without such rains, there is no possibility of vegetative growth. Vegetative growth, yeah. So the Lord gives facilities for the reactions of the jivas, past good and bad activities. The living entity is responsible for his own action. So Krishna organized the system in this world. If you act out of material desires, then you are responsible for your good and bad activities. That's the system. If you have material desires, if you want to enjoy, we get reactions. But Krishna is not on that platform. He doesn't get any reactions. That it's the activities we do in the material world is up to our desire. We desire to serve Krishna, we desire spiritually. We desire to enjoy this world with our body and senses, go for it, then you get reactions and you become entangled. So different kinds of reactions come. Different kinds of vegetation come when rain. But the rain is not as responsible for the vegetation. That's the analogy. Next. Reflection. Lord Krishna has no desire for the fruits of work. When will I give up my desire for fruitive work by adopting the process of devotional service, which means offering the results of my work and the work itself to the Lord? When will we do that? Nautam Das Thakur prays to the Lord, please, when will my desires to enjoy this world become insignificant? Well, when will I give it up and just engage in your devotional service? So it means always acting for the pleasure of the Lord, for worshipping the Lord. So worship is a way of life that text 15, that in text 15, so Krishna refers to us. He spoke about himself in the previous verse. Now he says, Evan hyatvakitam karma purverapi mamuksabi kurva karmaiva tasmatvam purva purvataram kritam. All the liberated souls in ancient times acted with this understanding of my transcendental nature. Therefore you should perform your duty following in their footsteps. So Krishna says to us, Arjuna, you should follow the liberated souls from the past. You are a Kshatriya, fight out of duty. And that not to go to the heavenly planets. No, that not because one is afraid from sinful reactions. There will be no sinful reactions because you act out of duty, then there are no sinful reactions. That was one of the arguments that Krishna had before. Vidya-bhushan. Knowing this about me, those desiring liberation in ancient time performed actions without desire. Therefore perform action as the ancient performed it, following after their predecessors. Yeah. Next slide. Das Vidya-bhushan. If one is impure in heart, one should perform these actions to purify the heart. This leads to jnana. If one is already pure in heart, one should not perform the action to teach. One should perform the action to teach others. So that has been explained in the 3rd chapter. Now it's said again. Vidya-bhushan make the point. Yes. If you act out of duty, your heart will become purified. If you do it as a sacrifice for Krishna. And then Krishna will give you realizations. Purification means realizing. The heart, realizing our real nature as a spirit soul, and forgetting our identification, our false identification with this mind, this body, these senses, and forgetting our attachment to this world, which are also flickering, temporary, and this attachment are very troublesome. So purification of the heart means we give them up. And that's jnana, that's knowledge. That's real knowledge, that's realization. Reflections. Lord Krishna advised Arjuna to engage in the field of activities for the sake of Krishna, following in the footsteps of the Lord's previous disciples. So the question is, do I perform activities for the sake of Krishna 24 hours a day? Or only 2 hours? We have to come to 24 hours doing it for Krishna. Next section, verses 16 to 23. That's about karma. I will start this section as an introduction now, but we will finish it probably tomorrow, because this is a very important section. In this section, Krishna explains different kinds of karma. If one understands these different kinds of karma, one can do the right karma and get liberation. That if one, and he will speak about inaction, inaction, and action in inaction. That's where Arjuna was confused. It's not easy to understand for us also, but we'll try to explain that. And then, by acting according to akarma or Krishna consciousness, one becomes free from one's reactions of one's actions. One is not affected by these reactions, not affected by sin. The sinful means doing something for my enjoyment, not considering that Krishna is a proprietor and that therefore he has the right for enjoyment. So one should become satisfied with the gains, that material gains one gets from one's own accord. And then one becomes free from all dualities, good and bad in this world. So we will learn about karma. Yeah. After explaining its transcendental position, Krishna analyzes action and describes how to perform activities on the transcendental plane. Should be an A plane. Yeah. Next slide. So next slide is 16. Kim karma kim akarmeti kavayopyatra moita tate karma pavakshami yat-yat-va mokshabesi. But even the intelligent are bewildered in determining what is action and what is inaction. Now I shall explain you what action is, knowing which you shall be liberated from all fortune. So it's not easy to understand these intricacies of action and reaction. One needs to learn, Srila Prabhupada makes in the purport, needs to associate and learn from authorities in Krishna consciousness and learn the secret from them. So in the Bhagavatam, and Srila Prabhupada mentions this verse in the purport, there are 12 Mahajans. Svayambhu Narada Sambhu Kumara Kapilo Muni Palada Chanako Bhishma Palepyaya Sakirvayam. So Yamaraj is explaining that this to the Yamadutas. Yamadutas were frustrated because they wanted to drag away the soul of Ajamil, who had done so many sinful activities in his life. But at the end of his life, he chanted her holy name, and the Vishnu Dutas appeared with 4 arms, and they forbade the Yamadutas to take Ajamil. And therefore, they came to Yamaraj, the superintendent of death, and told them, what's the point here? That's who is our authority? You, or is there a higher authority? And then he speaks about these 12 Mahajans. And the first Mahajan is Lord Brahma. We are in the Brahma Mattva Gaudiya Sampradaya. He is the beginning of our Sampradaya, Brahma. And then Bhagavan Narada, that's his son. And then Lord Shiva is also a Mahajan, is the greatest devotee. The 4 Kumaras, Lord Kapila, the son of devotee, who speaks Sankhya philosophy in the Bhagavatam. Swayambhuva Manu, there's Prahlad Maharaj, and we will hear next week, the whole week, about the teachings of Prahlad Maharaj. Then Janak Maharaj, grandfather of Bhishma, Bali Maharaj, Sukadev Goswami, and myself, Yamaraj says. They only know the real religious principles. So it's not easy to know the real religious principles. That you must be a Mahajan to know it. But those who follow the Mahajans strictly and become self-realized, they also understand the real religious principles. So our Mahajan, our direct Mahajan is Srila Prabhupada. So it has to be learned from them, otherwise one cannot understand, especially here referring to these intricacies of action and reaction. And Krishna tells that repeats that in the next verse. Karmana yapi bodhavyam sa vikarmana. Akarmana sa bodhavyam gana karmano gati. The intricacies of action are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is. So Krishna says, it's very difficult to understand what action, forbidden action is, and inaction is. So we will try to understand. Next verse. One should understand the truth about vikarma, that performance of forbidden actions lead to misery. So that's the point here is, which Srila Prabhupada also makes in the purport, is that vikarma means forbidden actions. Actions not sanctioned in the scriptures, that not recommended. Because these are material actions, actions done out of material desire. But vikarma are actions that cause suffering, misery, because they are breaking the 4 pillars of religion that which is tapasya, tapa or tolerance. We must be tolerant as a religious principle. We must be clean. We must be austere. And we must be truthful. These are the 4 principles of religion. The Buddhist will say, our principles are following the 8 noble truths. We are following 4 principles. And if you break them, you will suffer. If we eat meat, eggs, or fish, animals have to suffer for that. We kill them. So then we will suffer, because that's against the principle of mercy. One must be merciful. Very important. That if one drinks alcohol, one loses one austerity. So it attacks directly these 4 principles of religion. And because it's a material action, an action not done out of duty, not for the pleasure of Krishna, but for my pleasure, you get reactions. You see here the cow that this man is killing has already his face. And he has the face of a cow already, because that will be in his destination in his next life. He eats the cow, he will become a cow to be killed by someone else. And these are stringent laws of material nature. Nothing can do anything again. That you will have to become. You will have to become an animal to be slaughtered, and that's vikarma. Whether we slaughter the animal, whether we eat, whether we prepare the flesh, whether we eat the flesh, whether we buy the flesh, you are responsible, and you will suffer for it. That's what Krishna explains. Vikarma. That's a very serious thing. That's the cause of the suffering of people in this world. Today there is so much suffering. It's all due to vikarma. In previous lives, they have all broken these 4 principles of religion. They may be good people, no, and so-called religious people, but most are not, because they still do not follow these four regulative principles. These four principles of religion. If you look at the 10 commandments of Moses, that's nothing else than following these four principles of religion. It's the same thing. Let's try to understand that. We are speaking here about universal principles of religion. Religions can have many forms. But the form in which we find it here is a supreme form. And Krishna explains it very clearly. In other scriptures, this knowledge is not explained as clearly. It's not. It's always very difficult to understand, confusing, to say at least. But this is very clear what Krishna says. Next verse. To understand Krishna consciousness and action according to its modes, one has to learn one's relationship with the Supreme. This means that one who has learned perfectly knows that every living entity is an eternal servant of the Lord, and consequently, one has to act in Krishna conscious. The entire Bhagavad Gita is directed toward this conclusion. Any other conclusions against this consciousness are vikarmas, or prohibited action. Srila Prabhupada is very clear. Everything not done for the pleasure of Krishna, everything not done for acting out of duty, you get reactions, vikarma, and you get suffering. Should be very clear. Then next verse. To understand this, one has to associate with authorities in Krishna consciousness and learn the secret from them. Otherwise, even the most intelligent persons will be bewildered. Then the last verse we will have today is a question to us. Are my own daily activities karma, vikarma, or akarma? That's akarma means Krishna consciousness. We will see next time. That's Krishna consciousness. Is it vikarma? That vikarma means activities against the scriptures that cause suffering, not for the pleasure of Krishna. Or is it karma? Karma is that one follows the scriptures, but still to fulfill one's material desires. But one does not perform vikarma. But that's a very dangerous path. Because karma, or so-called good karma or bad karma, from the transcendental platform, it's bad. And that's what Srila Prabhupada explaining here. That good karma will also cause suffering. Good karma gives pleasure for the body and senses, but to receive the good karma in your next life, you have to take birth again. And that's painful. And you have to get diseased and die. So that's something, yeah. We have in the Sahara, what are these big animals in the Sahara? The camels. Camels pass through in the Sahara, and immediately it dries up. But the upper side is dried. It's completely dry. But below it's still wet. So we can discuss what's better, Dry stool or wet stool? Srila Prabhupada said it's all stool. And that is what it is. So-called good and bad karma. It causes rebirth. So here you have all these activities: eat breakfast, eat lunch. We eat breakfast means honoring prasad. Lunch also. That make dinner means doing it for Krishna. Study means study Bhagavad Gita, study for Krishna. Yeah. Go for a walk is to keep the body fit for Krishna. Go shopping, we shop for Krishna. Read the paper, we don't read the paper, we read Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, back to Godhead. And clean the house, it's Krishna's house. So, otherwise, karma or vikarma, and that's not good. And okay, this is an introduction in trying to understand the intricacies of action and inaction. Next time we will go much deeper in that. Any question? Mm-hmm. No question, you will all apply it? Good. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.